Hey everybody, it's X, and welcome back to another Chromatic Cube draft. This is the cube full of a bunch of really powerful, rare, mythic, just bomb level, multicolored cards. So there's going to be a lot of splashy 3+ color decks in this cube, as well as some interesting like 2-color synergy decks available. This is a phantom draft format, so we're not going to keep any of the cards that we draft here. It is just for the fun of the format and the prizes on the tracker. With that all out of the way, let's look through our pack 1 and see what we want to pick here. As always in Cube, there are just a mountain of very powerful cards. There are a ton of great ways we can go pack 1, pick 1 here. We could take Treasure Map being the most open card. We can put this into literally any deck and use this as a decent little bit of card advantage, being able to scry a few times and then start sacrificing treasure tokens to draw cards. So a solid card for any deck to consistently hit the cards you need and then get some bonus cards. Binding the Old Gods is really good removal in a 5-color deck in this format because of its ability to destroy any non-land permanent and then pull out any forest from your deck. That includes triomes, the 3-color tri-lands. So that is really good mana fixing and removal all in one. So I really like Binding the Old Gods. There's of course Zakama if we want just a giant game ender, Elite Spellbinder if we want to play a more aggressive tempo deck. I think I'm just going to roll with Treasure Map here and just stay really boring and really open. Take the card that we can shove into literally any deck in the format, since it's just a solid little colorless card advantage piece. So pick 2 here. Now we've got Toxrill. Was absolutely disgusting in Crimson Vow. This card is... it's just going to completely turn the board into your favor if it's not dealt with. That's a pretty bonkers card. However, it is a big 7-mana explosive bomby card. There are a lot of cards like that in this cube, so you don't really need to take the really high mana cost cards particularly highly, because you can pretty much always get some good stuff at that slot. Cold Steel Heart is pretty great mana fixing in this cube. It's going to tap for whatever color you need when you play it, and it'll ramp you up as well. So Cold Steel Heart's another card that could keep us pretty open and be pretty good in any deck, because most of the decks in this cube tend to play a little more like commander decks where they have some just a lot of kind of high mana stuff. Immortal Sun's also pretty open, being completely colorless. Again, if we want to go to an aggressive strategy, Rankle's probably the best kind of aggro card here. There's like Play with Fire, that's fine. I think I'm just going to stay pretty open at the start of this one and see how that pans out for us. Just scoop up the Cold Steel Heart here. Pick 3, I'm definitely much less excited about 3-mana mana ramp than 2-mana mana ramp, because jumping from playing a 3-drop on turn 3 to a 4-drop on turn 3 is a little more exciting than a 5-drop on turn 4 to me. Especially because once you get to like 3 mana and up, that's where you start casting some pretty impactful spells. At least actually 4 mana and up is where you hit the really strong stuff. So yeah, I just prefer the mana fixing to be much cheaper, because you're not doing much else like turn 2 in this kind of cube. Pool of Vigorous Growth is a lot of fun. You get the Momir emblem where you get to get a random creature with mana value X. You just get to keep doing that. I might just take that because it's fun. I mean, this cube is pretty much mainly for fun here. Atsushi's a really powerful aggressive card though. Sarkhan's a great planeswalker, conjuring up a bunch of Shivan Dragons to your hand and a removal spell all in one. Yeah, some really strong stuff all over the place here. Pool of Vigorous Growth is the most fun card, but the red cards are way stronger. Sarkhan or Atsushi here. I'll take Atsushi. I'll go with the auto suggester there, see if that works out for us. What is this? Olivia Crimson Bride, 6 mana, 3/4 flying haste. When it attacks, return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. And if we lose control of Olivia, then we have to exile that creature. That's pretty interesting kind of reanimation there. There's the Combi War if we want to try to jump in on a 5-color deck again, but I did do 5-color for my very first draft of this cube, so I'm probably not going to do it again. Gonti is always very powerful in Cube. You're going to draw the best card out of the top 4 cards of your opponent's library, and in Cube, again, all of the cards are pretty powerful, so you're probably going to hit something pretty good digging 4 cards deep through your opponent's library. So I like Gonti a lot here. Maybe start pushing into black-red. A little weird not to take like the black-red dual-colored card if we're going to push to black-red, but I think Gonti seems probably just stronger than Olivia generally. Gonti is always great in Cube. Well, now we have Torbran if we want to go really heavy into red. This card still kind of weirds me out seeing this in a cube that's so heavily multicolored, because it is so color restrictive that you really need to be 2 colors at most, ideally just red, to play it well. But I could take Torbran here and try to be try to be that guy today and just jump in on like the mono red aggro stuff. It would be fine in like a red black deck if red is a more prevalent color as well. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Possible that we wheel it, pretty unlikely. I feel like somebody else is going to be excited about mono red if they see Torbran. But Krenko definitely won't wheel, and Krenko will be a lot easier to cast and play around with no matter what we end up doing, because it only requires 1 colored mana, just a red and then 2 others. So even if we end up like 3 color, Krenko is still very playable. It's like a way more open pick, and it's still quite a powerful card. So I'm going to scoop up Krenko there, and we could maybe be some kind of red-black sacrifice deck. We do see God Eternal Bonsu being really good for sacrifice synergies. That being said, our only other black card right now is Gaunty, so we could take an off-color card like multiple choice, just being really powerful. 5 mana, get a 4/4, make your opponent bounce a card, scry 1 and draw 1. Dream Eater's also really powerful. 6 mana flash flyer that bounces an opposing permanent, and Surveils 4, that's basically scry 4. Very powerful for setting up your next draws. Elspeth Conquers Death is also incredibly powerful. We're seeing just super powerful stuff all over the place. Vraska is great as well. The only thing I'm really leaning towards right now is red. Probably take Elspeth Conquers Death or one of these great blue cards here. I don't know if multiple choice or Dream Eater is better. They're both phenomenal. I'll take multiple choice. It's a little cheaper, and the blue-red color pair in this cube and in most cubes is going to be about casting a lot of instant and sorcery spells. So you have things that trigger when you cast them, things that will duplicate them. So I'll take the sorcery over the creature when it's a pretty close pick. And now I can take Electrolyze here. However, Urabrask is very strong, and we're pretty much definitely in red. I feel like Electrolyze is stronger if we know that we'll be in blue-red. But Urabrask, again, is going to leave us a little more open, because then if we still end up pivoting back into just being red-black, Urabrask will still be great. This lets us draw an extra card every turn, but we have to play it the turn we draw it. And our opponent now has to play everything they draw the turn they draw it. But Electrolyze is such great cheap interaction. I don't know, I'm going to go for Urabrask here. It's a really, really close one there, but I do like the aspect of staying open here, and that does let us pick up the Henrika Domnathi here. 4 mana for a 1/3 flyer. You can have each player sack a creature, or you can draw a card and lose a life, and then you can transform Henrika Domnathi to a 3/4 flying Death Touch lifelink. Vampire Nighthawk's bigger, better cousin. Very powerful card. Shatterskull Smashing is also very good. This is 2 removal spells in 1, plus it's a land if you don't need that removal spell. So you spend like 6 mana, you get to do 4 damage divided as you choose. You really want to get the 6 or more on your X for this to be really good though, and that is a lot of mana. So I'm going to take Henrika Domnathi still. Now we have Terror Grid, which could be interesting. That is a good combo with Henrika Domnathi because we can make our opponent sacrifice something. Plus, Terror Grid's Lantern can be a way to close out a game. You just keep tapping that and untapping it. Use that to try to finish things off. I think I like it better than these red cards here. Find Some Prisoners could be okay because you get main deck artifact removal. Magmatic Channeler's good if you're probably pretty aggressive. I think I'm going to go for Terror Grid here. She seems pretty fun. All right, Black-Red's looking pretty open. Pretty happy with where we're at. We see an Angrath and a Cavalier of Night. As much as I'd love to take Angrath here because it is a very cool card, I do think Cavalier of Night is stronger. This is a removal spell for creatures with mana value 3 or less, or it's like just sits there and make your opponent keep discarding. Cavalier of Night, if you have an expendable creature to sacrifice, can destroy any creature when it enters the battlefield and leave behind a 5 mana 4/5 lifelinking body. So Cavalier of Night, big threatening creature that can lifelink you back into the game, and a removal spell all in one. Very, very good card. Lithoform Engine is a fun build around, but it is a lot of mana and a little dirty, but that's probably what this cube is all about. So we could take that. We could also take Ravenous Squirrel and go into some kind of Jund sacrifice deck. We're already in like Black-Red sack. I'm going to take the Squirrel here. Seems a little more synergistic than the Lithoform Engine. Well, we could have been the 5-color deck here, that's for sure. Probably taking Charmbreaker Devils here, though. Alchemist Gambit, if you're not playing blue, is not particularly playable because you have to win the turn that you cast it, or in the extra turn that you cast it. But we'll take Charmbreaker Devils here. This potentially just keeps returning things from our grave back to our hand. And Torbran did wheel. I did say it was way more likely to wheel than Krenko because most people are trying to play multiple colors where Torbran will be really hard to cast. So now, if we're heavier into red than black, Actually, we're maybe going into Jund with this Ravenous Scroll, so I'm actually going to take Vraska over God Eternal Bonsu. That might be wrong. We're definitely not playing Torbran and Vraska in the same deck, so we'll have to like choose at some point if we're just black-red or if we are the full Jund. But they're both very strong. I have lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was trying to say earlier, but let's just get into this next pack. Some more very powerful options. Noxious Gearhulk is very similar to Cavalier of Night, and I love it for that. 6 mana, 5/4 menace, and you destroy target creature when it enters the battlefield and gain life equal to its toughness. Huge way to stabilize. Removal spell and a bunch of life gain and a blocker all off of one card. That card is super sweet. I would love for that to wheel, and it feels like it would be more likely for it to wheel than a Gilded Goose or a Lotus Cobra. These cards are just essential for any green 3-color deck in the format because they really help mana fix you. That being said, right now green looks like our lowest represented color, so we can probably end up just playing Rakdos where we're not just going to use a bunch of green little mana dorks. Because if green is our splash, if it's our least played color, then we're not going to have our green mana in the early game to cast our cheap mana dorks, so little mana fixing that requires your splash color to cast is not good mana fixing, and it's looking like green is our splash, if anything, here. So Yawgmoth Thran Physician seems like exactly what the doctor ordered for a Rakdos sacrifice strategy. We can scoop that up here. We need to get very, very concerned about our curve and start taking any good cheap interaction at this point, though, because if you take a look here, we have 4 cards that cost less than 4 mana. We have tons of big stuff. That's kind of how this cube is built. But at the same time, there are cards like Thraben Inspector that are just like nice cheap cards that give you a little bit of value. We need to start just slam dunking those cards super fast over cards like Atali that are like big explosive late game effects, because we kind of just have a lot of those going on right now and not a lot of cheap stuff. We need to have stuff to do throughout the game. And here, I think for that reason, I'm going to take the Captain Lannery Storm, most likely. She's going to produce treasure tokens to help get to our very restrictive mana costs. We have a card that costs triple black, a card that costs triple red, while also being something to actually do early in the game before all of our just mountain of 4 mana and higher cards. So I like Captain Lannery Storm here. Zeatora would be cool if we're still like definitely going Jund, but I am starting to lean towards maybe just going red-black here. There's also the Alchemy card that's an option. Your opponent sacrifices a creature, and then you get a copy of that creature into your hand. Very good if your opponent only has 1 creature, but I don't know. I think I'd prefer Lannery here. Those treasure tokens are probably going to be pretty valuable for us. Now we have Feed the Swarm for cheap removal. And this is where things get really rough because Drakazeth is a very powerful card. I wouldn't take Drakazeth over Feed the Swarm with the way our curve is looking, but I'm very tempted to take Terror of the Peaks over it because this card is really, really powerful. 5 mana for a 5/4 flyer. If your opponent wants to target it with a spell, it's going to cost them 3 life to do so. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you're dealing damage equal to that creature's power to any target. That can really quickly finish somebody off. Terror of the Peaks is so strong, but I really feel like I'm supposed to take Feed the Swarm here. When in the Chromatic Cube, though, I'm going to get greedy with it and take that Terror of the Peaks. I really just love that card. It is so strong. Not following my own advice here and ending up with a deck with nothing to do before turn 4. Alright, so now we have Massacre Worm, which is very obviously quite powerful, but I'm going to take Toralf's Disciple over it here because, I don't know, I'm just not as excited about Massacre Worm as I am about Terror of the Peaks. I don't know. I just enjoy the card more. It's kind of like a pet card of mine. I just like it. Massacre Worm is probably pretty strong this cube, but a little weaker than normal because, again, as you can see from how the cube is looking, there's not a mountain of like cheap stuff that'll actually die to Massacre Worm like there usually is. There's going to be a lot more decks that are like 3+ colors playing only a bunch of big stuff. Okay, so now we have Midnight Reaper. Mizzix's Mastery is really fun. I don't think we're the deck for it, though. Overload this and just win out of nowhere. That's definitely a great win condition for the blue-red spells deck. So we obviously have Midnight Reaper to actually get something cheap going here, and I am going to take it, even though there's Siege Gang Commander, which is definitely the stronger card. This card is just really good. You're getting 3 1/1 goblins and the 2/2 goblin, and every single one of those, including Siege Gang Commander itself, can be used as removal spell, 2 mana for 2 damage to any target. So Siege Gang's a really great flexible card, but again, we're chunking up on high mana. Let's get another 3-drop here with the Midnight Reaper. Oh, I'm so happy to see Lightning Bolt. That is absolutely perfect. Because now we're getting chunked up at 3 and plus mana. We still don't have a lot of 1 or 2 mana things to do. And Lightning Bolt is a great way to get some really cheap interaction if our opponent drops some kind of like powerful 2-drop to start bashing into us with. We just bolt it away. We actually have something early to do. Okay, so we are just a 2-color deck, so we don't need mana fixing particularly highly, so I haven't even mentioned any lands so far. However, now we're getting to the point where maybe we do take a Dragon Skull Summit, because even though we're 2 colors, we do have restricted mana costs. We need triple black, triple red, so hitting those is a lot harder off of just basic lands. So do I take Dragon Skull Summit over Forsworn Paladin? Maybe I'm supposed to, but I am going to take Forsworn Paladin here again. We just have not much to do at 1 and 2 mana. But yeah, that time there was actual like serious contention between maybe I need to start taking these lands now if we see the on-color ones. The only thing on color for us is Crackle with Power. Probably not going to play it. It requires a ton of mana. Our deck looks a little bit faster than that. But there's nothing else to play here. I could take Temple of Abandon, speculate on still splashing green, but I think we're just Rakdos at this point. Just red-black. I actually don't know what the back half of this card does, so I'll just keep it in for now because it is red-black. That'll be an easy Atali. We could still run Ravenous Squirrel. It's a 1-mana 1/1 that gets +1/+1 counter whenever we sacrifice something, even if we don't get to use it to sacrifice more cards. Could still run it. Wield the Soul Servitude. Alright, that's pretty good interaction, I think. Maybe supposed to take Temple of the Dragon Queen, red or black mana. I would much prefer one that adds both than one that we just get to choose one of the two. If that was a red-black duel, I'd probably take it there. But because it's just a 1 color, we just pick the 1. I'm not going to go for it. None of this is useful to us. And we wheel the Massacre Worm. Alright, still get the Massacre Worm for anybody who didn't want me to pass that, which I'm sure there are many of you. Now we have Neheb or Mizzix's Mastery. 2 instants, 1 sorcery. Yeah, Neheb it is. Then Assemble from Parts, another on-color card. I have no idea what it does because it's some kind of weird alchemy card, but get in the deck, I guess. Alright, big old 6-drop Gear Hulk. Not really what we're looking for on the curve. Look at this mountain we've got going on. Actually, it's looking better now. Looks pretty good. I think we've almost solved our curve problem here. This looks like a real deck. And we have 26 cards right now, so we really get to start just choosing, getting a lot more options when we get to deck building. I like Smoldering Egg, but we have a really low instant and sorcery count, so this is probably not going to work in our deck. We need to cast 7 mana value of instants and sorceries to flip this into the dragon. It is still a 0/4 blocker in the early game. I think I'm just going to take Finale of Eternity here. Solid removal spell. Removing, it's kind of like a one-sided Wrath. It's going to cost a lot of mana to do it, but it's pretty good. Take Finale of Eternity. It's not a 2-drop though, it's like a 6-drop as well. Now we have, what do we have? Electrostatic Blast is great, cheap. Removal/burn, Haunted Ridge for a black-red duel. Faithless Looting is some card filtering. It doesn't actually put us up a card because we have to discard as many cards as we drew, but it's still pretty good. Tenacious Underdog is nice if we get aggressive. Just keep recasting this from the graveyard. Yeah, I like Tenacious Underdog. I like Electrostatic Blast. I like both of these quite a bit. I might go for the Underdog here. Start getting a pretty good aggressive curve because I think we do have some powerful aggressive cards like Toralf's Disciple, Lannery Storm, Krenko. A lot of our stuff is aggressive at the higher cost, but we don't have the cheaper creatures to start getting that early damage and to really help those cards win the game. So I'm going to take Tenacious Underdog here. Worst case scenario, if we don't get any of these like black-red dual lands, we can just end up like cutting Torburn and Cavalier because they're so restrictive in terms of their mana costs. Like if we just have double blacks and double reds, we're not that hard punished for not having any dual lands. So what do we have now? Callous Blood Mage, a 3-drop creature. Pretty good on those though. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Yeah, it's not a super exciting one. It's fine. Fight with Fire is nice because it's a removal spell when you need it early in the game, and it seconds as a win condition if you get the 9 mana required to kick it. Just do 10 damage to your opponent's face. Yeah, I'll take Fight with Fire here. I am an enjoyer of that card. Now we have Plarg, Dean of Chaos. We will never cast Augusta, but this is a 2-mana 2/2 to start attacking with. And if it gets to the point where the board state's too big and it can't attack, we just start discarding cards to draw cards. We can also just take Sorin here, though. 4 mana, worst case scenario, we get a 2/3 flying lifelink. Best case scenario, we do that, and then we get to draw some cards. Maybe make some more 2/3 flying lifelinks. Yeah, Sorin seems pretty strong. There's also Guardian Idol for ramping up as a turn 2 play. I'm going to go for the Sorin, I think.
Order to this broken world.
Wow, Sorin is yelling at me. We have Davriel, Alchemy, I'm not going to read it. Arcane Bombardment. Davriel's probably strong, but there's a lot of nonsense on this card. Like, accept one of Davriel's offers, then accept one of its conditions. And I can't look through the offers and conditions, so I have no idea. Probably strong. It's 4 mana, though. It's 4 mana, and we have so much at 4 mana, so I'm okay to pass up. Arcane Bombardment's fun for the blue-red spells deck. Mind Stone's fine little mana ramp for us, but not super exciting, so I'm going to take the Blood Crypt here now and actually grab a black-red duel. And now we have nothing. Yep, this pack is just a full-on miss. We're not going to play any of this stuff. I guess I could take another blue-red duel. I've got a blue-black duel, so if we have a blue-black and a blue-red, then maybe if somebody passes us like a Nicol Bolas, we can splash them in, I guess. Unlikely to happen, but we're not playing anything else in there. Agonizing Remorse is a card I do like. 2 mana, get rid of your opponent's best card in their hand and exile it so you know they don't even get it back from the graveyard. That's probably pretty good in this cube where so much stuff that's powerful is like a lot of mana. So you just get that anytime earlier in the game and you're going to rip out your opponent's best card. So your 2 mana little discard spell is trading into their big 6 mana bomb or something. Hidetsugu, I guess, is like a black-red sacrifice card. Jaxus is also like fine for us. These both are just okay, because I mean they're at 4 mana where we have a mountain of other things, so they're probably going to get cut just because we have so many other options and we need to cut some stuff. Well, now Smoldering Egg is the only option. Alright, what do we have coming for us in the final half of this pack? We wield the black-red duel. I'm going to scoop that up. Grey Merchant of Asphodel would have been really fun if we had it a little earlier. We actually do have a pretty high devotion to black. That would be pretty fun, pretty strong in here. But I'm just going to take the black-red duel. And then I don't have to feel so bad about running like Torben and Cavalier of Night. Maybe we have enough cards to go mono black here. Maybe this was the time. We just go Grey Merchant and go for mono black at this point. Could take a Prismari command. We've got 2 blue sources. It is pretty good, but that'd be kind of a difficult splash because of our very restrictive on-color costs. So I'll just take the Blood Mage. And then we'll take Plarg. Zerzoth, what do you even do? You do some stuff, but you're 3 mana. We've got a lot of 3 mana creatures. Yeah, not that interested. Take a Plarg. Take a Karn. That's a late Karn. Karn can fit into any deck as a solid little card advantage engine. Drawing the worst card out of your top 2 every turn. And then you can -1 at a later time to draw the card that your opponent said no. So yeah, you reveal your top 2, your opponent picks one that goes to exile. And the other one goes to your hand. And then for a -1, you can just draw the one that went to exile as well. So basically +1, draw the worst card out of your top 2 and bank the better card for later. And then -1 to pick up the better card. Pretty solid. But yeah, that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize about this card, is that just the +1 and -1 are pretty good. Like they're super solid. Just sit there drawing cards. I think people get a little too tied to the -2 ability and feel like this card is only for artifact decks. It's really not. So we have a 52 card mountain of a deck here. We need to cut a lot of stuff out of here. This kind of deck, I think I'm trying to be relatively aggressive, so I probably want to keep as many of our cheap cards as we can and probably run around 17 creatures, relatively high creature count here. Drop the Smoldering Egg, probably. Keep the rest of the 3 and less mana cards. And then need to drop some of our higher mana cost stuff, so that leaves us currently with 24 creatures. So get Smoldering Egg out of here. And yeah, 24 creatures. So that means we get to cut 4, 5, 6, 7 more creatures out of this deck. So let's pick just the strongest of the 4 drops. Hitotsuga looks a little slow, but decently powerful. Gonti is just definitely good. The 3 Weird Sisters, or Henrika Domnathi, are definitely good. Yawgmoth is definitely good. Atsushi's definitely good. Neheb's a little slow, and Torbjorn's a little color restrictive. Triple red is a bit of a difficult cost, even with 2 dual lands. Alright, so we could potentially cut those 3, and that would pop us down to 21. We would need 4 more cuts still. Look at our 5 mana stuff. Terragrid seems like the slowest of what we have there, and we didn't get a ton of ways to make our opponents discard or sacrifice, so I'm not a huge fan of Terragrid there. I do love me Cavalier of Night, Terror of the Peaks, and Urabrask, though. When we look at 6 mana, Atali is very slow, but pretty powerful. It's a 6 mana 6/6 with no way to protect itself, no haste or anything, no trample. But if it stays on the board until your next turn, then when you attack with it, you get a pretty great amount of value from it. The lack of an enter the battlefield effect or anything for any immediate value is concerning on this card, though, because if you look at most of our other cards, the vast majority of our cards have some way to protect themselves or just get immediate value. We have Noxious Gearhulk and Massacre Worm just immediately having a huge enter the battlefield effect. Cavalier of Night is the same, Gonti as well. We have Atsushi having the ability, even if it dies, we get something out of it. We just have a lot of stuff like that that's going to be way better than Atali. Charmbreaker Devils also looks a bit slow for our deck as well, because it's kind of similar. 6 mana for a 4/4, and then it will not do anything until our next upkeep. That being said, if it makes it to our next upkeep, it is going to start giving us some great value, picking up an instant or sorcery every turn, but it has to survive a whole cycle of turns. So that puts our deck down to 18 creatures, potentially 1 more cut here. Don't know what I would want to cut. So I'll take a look at the non-creature cards and see what we want to cut out of there first, because we're going to cut 4 of those for sure. So let's see. I have no idea what this thing is. Assemble from parts. 1 mana, target creature card in your graveyard potentially gains the ability to spend 3, exile it from your graveyard, shuffle it into your library, and create a 4/4 zombie version of it. So essentially, for 4 mana, you get a 4/4 copy of a card in your graveyard that's a 4/4. Oh, I already said that. For 4 mana, you get a 4/4 copy of a creature in your graveyard and shuffle it back to your library. It's not instant speed, though. The 1 mana is instant speed, but then the 3 mana you have to use as a sorcery. This is a weird card. I mean, it's fun, it's cool. Kind of like another creature, though, and I'm already sort of just wanting to cut creatures. Yeah, I don't think I'm playing that. That's kind of weird. Definitely playing Lightning Bolt. Definitely playing Agonizing Remorse. I love interaction in this cube. Crackle with Power is a big expensive card, so that might be one of our first cuts. Finale of Eternity is also a big expensive card. And not super exciting to me here. Cold Steel Heart looks pretty good in this deck, because even though we have kind of like an early curve here, even though we're trying to have kind of an early curve here, we only have 4 creatures to play turn 1 or turn 2. We only have 2 2-mana creatures. There's going to be a lot of games we don't have anything else to do on turn 2, and putting a Cold Steel Heart down on turn 2 is going to be good for us, because that lets us just like turn 3 Gonti, turn 4 Urabrask, stuff like that. I think Cold Steel Heart looks fine in here. Spending a card on mana ramp, though, is not really what you want to be doing in aggro decks, because you want every single one of your cards to be able to get the board clear, push in for damage, that kind of stuff. Because generally in these kind of aggressive decks, you don't have a lot of card draw, you're not going to have a lot of card advantage, so you need to make sure that your cards are just putting enough early game pressure on to close the game out before you run out of stuff to do. And Cold Steel Heart, because all it does is add mana, is going to mean you're going to run out of stuff a little bit earlier, because it's not really impacting the board in any way. Still kind of want to keep it, though. I'm going to cut those 2 really expensive X mana spells, though. We still need to cut 2 cards. I could cut 1 card here and go for a 41 card special. I do that a lot. Last draft, the 5 color draft we did for our first Chromatic Cube, we did a 42 card special because we wanted to play 18 lands and I didn't want to cut a card. Here we're definitely playing 17. We're not going less than 17 with this deck. We've got 6 mana stuff. We have a mountain at 4. If we don't hit 4 mana on turn 4, we're going to be really, really sad. So to help consistently do that, keep our 17 in here. But we're definitely not going to 18. We're not that high mana. So I could cut the Cold Steel Heart. I could cut the Treasure Map, because you do need extra mana to make good use of the Treasure Map, and it looks like a lot of the time we really want to just be tapping out all of our mana for just our biggest play every turn. Treasure Map is better in a deck that really takes over the long game, rather than tries to dump everything out as quickly as possible. Because that 1 mana tax to keep scrying is going to be pretty painful in a deck like this, where like on turn 4 with our 4 mana, we really want to play a big 4 mana card. If we were some kind of deck that's just like setting up at that point, that just wants to cast Cultivate and grab a couple lands on turn 4 still, then like, yeah, that's perfect, it's fine. But I think the fact that we have to dump mana into this is going to be hard for this to be an early game play, so we have to kind of treat it as like we're not really going to be scrying with it till later, once we're out of the 3 and 4 mana clump, and at that point, it's not that powerful. It's fine. Yeah, I'm going to drop the Treasure Map here and go for a 41 card special, and I think this will be the deck. Alright, one more adjustment to the deck. I did go ahead and cut the Ravenous Squirrel. As much as I do like actually having a curve and having some 1 and 2 mana cards, we are not sacrificing cards enough for this to get much bigger. Especially since we could just cut Treasure Map to cut some treasures out of this deck. If we count up every single way that we have to sacrifice our cards, we have Forsworn Paladin, that would be sacrificing treasures, that's 1. We have the Blitz on Underdog, that's a very, very rare occasion, so I'm not even really going to count that. So that's 1 way to sacrifice something of our own. Captain Lannery Storm is 2. Yawgmoth is 3. That feels way too inconsistent for the 1 mana 1/1 to be worth it. There's 4 if you count Cavalier of Night, so 4, maybe 5 if you counted Tenacious Underdog, and most of them are quite a bit later in the game, so I don't think the Squirrel's doing much in here. So we're going to cut down to just a regular 40 card deck rather than a 41 card special. Alright, so here's a final look at the deck that we have drafted today. It is a red-black aggressive deck. Our curve is not super aggressive. There's not a lot of 1 and 2 mana cards in here to really get the ball rolling, but that's just kind of how this cube is in general. There's not a ton of those in the cube, but once we get to 3 mana, we have some pretty powerful aggressive cards, some hasters like Toralf's Disciple, Captain Lannery Storm, some very impactful cards like Krenko, Midnight Reaper can keep us fueled, and then once we get to 4 mana and better, we just have some just kind of like big bomb kind of creatures with good amounts of evasion, like the Fiends of Darkest Night here, Flying Death Touch Lifelink and the ability to buff itself. Atsushi here, Flying and Trample with a nice death trigger. We've got Urbrass coming in with haste, giving us some more card draw. Terror the Peaks being a big scary flyer. Lots of like powerful aggro creatures at 3 to 5 mana here with this deck. We've got a little bit of cheap interaction, Agonizing Remorse to pull our opponent's best card out of their hand, Lightning Bolt to keep some cheaper stuff off the board. And yeah, other than that, we're just trying to use these 3 to 5 mana creatures to just put a lot of damage on our opponent and close the game out before they do anything too explosive in the Chromatic Cube. So without further ado, let's head into round 1. Here we are in round 1. Pretty unfortunate hand here. We need a black source pretty badly, to the point where I think it's worth a mulligan. We've got both colors this time, and we have a 1-drop into a 2-drop. I like that. I'll keep this and probably get rid of Massacre Worm. We have 2 cards, 2 lands here, so we have to draw 4 more to even think about casting Massacre Worm, and 2 of them have to be black sources. Yeah, it'll be a bit difficult to know that we're casting Massacre Worm with this hand. Alright, Swamp is the turn 1 play from our opponent. Well, we've drawn our own Swamp, so we might as well play it here. Not pay any life to our Blood Crypts. Green-black from our opponent. The first card is some kind of alchemy thing. Death Touch, when it deals combat damage to a player, conjure a card named Virus Beetle into your hand. That is a little obnoxious. Yeah, I don't really want to discard my entire hand, so I'm probably going to lightning bolt that card. Yeah, I guess I'm just going to do that while they're tapped out here. And we get in for one. Llanowar Visionaries to play. They're going to draw a card, and that can tap for a green. So that'll ramp them up as well. I would rather them not be ramping here, but at the same time, if I'm not putting anything on this board, I'm not really closing this game out. I'm going to hold on to the Fight with Fire here. We're just going to drop the Midnight Reaper and hit for one. Hopefully nothing too explosive comes here. Uh-oh. A third color, blue, green, and black, and 5 mana at the ready. Gitrog, Horror of Zava. They have a mountain of alchemy cards. At the beginning of each combat, if it's untapped, any opponent can sack a non-token creature. If they do, tap it, seek a land, put it on the battlefield tapped. Oh, absolutely not going to sacrifice something right now. Ooh, Agonizing Remorse. We can play Agonizing Remorse and Tenacious Underdog here. Fight with Fire is not big enough to kill Gitrog anyway. Yeah, let's see what's in their hand. They have Slumgar's Command, pretty big, kind of 2-for-1 there. Counter a non-creature spell and then remove one of our creatures. Or Search for Azcanta, which when it flips is going to be pretty bad for us because it's going to keep drawing them cards. I think I have to get rid of Slumgar's Command, but I'm not super happy about it. Because that Search for Azcanta is also a problem. Get our Tenacious Underdog out here. I guess I could sacrifice a creature here so I get to attack in. Probably not worth it though. This card is really good, because that is so bad if I tap it, and it's so bad if I don't. If I don't, they're hitting me for 6, and if I do, they're getting another land onto the board, and that land can just sacrifice itself to draw a card. That card is very strong. Yeah, I'm just gonna let them hit us for 6, I guess. They don't want to hit us for 6, they want to hold the blocker back, and Vivian off the top is the play. Pretty powerful one. Sack a creature, search for a larger creature. So they sacked a 3-mana creature, they get a 4-mana one out of their deck. Well, that was a really, really bad draw for us, because they were kind of out of gas there. Top pile will be face down. You can have 2 lands or 1 card. I think we go, you can have Dreadhorde Invasion, or you can have these 2 cards. And they probably just pick Dreadhorde Invasion, but maybe they'll think these cards are better. And they did take the lands. Sick. Okay. So Fight with Fire can shoot Planeswalkers. We can give a creature +2/+0 until end of turn. That's not enough to beat the Gitrog monster. We need to have 6 mana up to double pump with this. I guess I could make a treasure token and then make it Death Touch. Yeah, so we definitely send the underdog at Vivian. Because we can Death Touch out of nowhere here. Okay, they are going to block. So what we do is we make a treasure, and then we give the Death Touch. Pay with treasure. And we kill the Gitrog. And draw a card from Midnight Reaper. Pretty nice turn there. Vivian is still around, which is a massive issue, but got rid of Gitrog here. We know 4 of their cards do basically nothing right now, but we don't know what they drew into. Okay, they're gonna Vivian again, +2. Come on, that's +2, it's not even a plus. Oh, Allrund. So now they get to draw extra cards. They just pick a card type and draw all of those out of the top 3 to their hand. So they probably pick creature here. Creature it is, and they draw an Uro off of that. Vivian is at 8 now. I guess Vivian doesn't have an ultimate, but still, just getting a Rhino every single turn. Well, Fight with Fire can't even target Planeswalkers. We're just gonna get Grand Slammed by Vivian here. Guess we cast Plarg, maybe? I don't even know. No blocks. Yeah, I'll just give 1+2. Put Vivian to 3. And then we'll just play Plarg.
You won't like it when I fight back.
Here comes Uro. Nope, they're gonna sack Alrund and get a 6-drop creature now.
Dog world out there.
Muldrotha. Wow, the Vivian Birthing Pod combos really have demolished us here. This is super rough. If they just had the Vivian in the hand earlier, we could have just Agonizing Remorsed Vivian. But if Vivian resolves, we're pretty dead. Their deck seems pretty powerful with Vivian's Birthing Pod ability. Being able to Vivian and work your way up the chain to a Muldrotha is just so powerful because Vivian fills the grave with everything you just sacrificed. To recast with the Muldrotha. Well, there's Noxious Gearhulk to get rid of that Muldrotha. That's certainly a start here. Doesn't really break through or anything. We don't have any attacks anymore because we are tapped out. I could have threatened Vivian, like attack Vivian with Midnight Reaper and be like, well, if you block, I'll buff and I'll trade into whatever you block with. But if our opponent took that bluff, it would be really bad for us because then we'd have to spend the 3 mana or just lose Midnight Reaper for nothing. And if we ended up spending the 3 mana, we wouldn't be casting Gearhulk. So I don't think that was a point where we wanted to attack before playing Gearhulk just to threaten with that open mana.
I brought some muscle.
Alright, opponent is done with the Birthing Pod shenanigans. They are going to just start making 4/4 Rhinos, which is also pretty astronomically bad for us. A 4/4 Rhino is equivalent to the average card out of our deck, so basically every single turn they're kind of getting 2 cards of value from that, plus they're getting extra cards off Alrund. Looks pretty over for us, but it will take a while to like actually die in this game, but I don't see anything that can turn this around for us. Can't think of anything in our deck. I mean, we are drawing well, because now we get to just Cavalier of Night and get rid of this Alrund. Unless they have a counter spell here. Alright, no counter spell. We will sack Plarg, because I like Forsworn Paladin's abilities. Destroy Alrund. Alright, draw a card off Midnight Reaper. Mountain it is. Now that we don't have Plarg anymore, we're pretty free to just drop this out and help get to 10 mana for Fight with Fire. Or I guess 9 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can make a treasure with Paladin, then if we top deck a land, we can Fight with Fire. That's actually probably our out here. We try to Fight with Fire to deal 10 damage, deal 4 to Vivian, and then clear some blockers out. I guess 5, 6 to Vivian maybe, depending on what they do. Do I send a Noxious Gearhulk in here? It'll trade into the 4/4 Rhino and that's it, because they can block it with a 4/4 and a 1/3. Seems like a no to me. I think we pass turn, and we're banking on drawing a land for Fight with Fire as our main out. Our way to put the board position in our favor. Yeah, we're still in it with a Fight with Fire in hand, I guess, if our opponent doesn't have anything to follow up with. They've got strong stuff to follow up with. Shark Typhoon it is. Get a 6/6 flyer and draw a card. If they minus Vivian, we can kill Vivian the Shark. And I guess that's it, because the 1/1's going to be a 2/2 here. Yeah, if they don't plus Vivian, then we can kill Vivian and the shark with Fight with Fire. Which is good. We are going to take 6. They are going to minus Vivian and get a Rhino.
You may be bad.
And Timeless Witness. Return another card from their grave to hand, plus draw a card from Najee Curator. Opponent is just drowning us in card advantage here. A lot of chains to the Rube Goldberg machine, and they're just going to pick up Shark Typhoon and make another giant flying shark that we can't deal with. We did not draw land for the kicked Fight with Fire. And that'll do it. We don't have any way to kill the shark. And they'll have 2 of them here. Blue 1 and then 1, 2, 3, 4. That's exact lethal in the sky. And we could play Yawgmoth, sack some stuff to put some counters on some -1s. But we have to pay a life to do that, so we take just as much damage. So we're straight dead unless we like send in Cavalier Knight and gain some life here. Yeah, we're not like dead on board. Because we can attack with lifelink, we probably die in like 2 turns, but we don't have any outs anymore. Ended up closer than I thought in those later turns there. Early in the game, I was like, all right, well, we just lose. But once we got to those late turns, I think before they did the Shark Typhoon, I was like, maybe we actually have a chance. Nope. Here we are now in game 2. Pretty good curve here. We've got a 2-drop into a 3-drop creature, both of which are pretty threatening cards. Well, Plarg's not threatening, but Krenko's very threatening. Krenko makes up for how unassuming Plarg is. Cultivator's Caravan is the play from our opponents. That is just a mana rock until they get some power on the board to crew it. And then it's a mana rock that can attack or block as a 5/5. Lightning Helix my Krenko, that is rude as heck. And Search for Azcanta, pretty controlling Jeskai deck, it looks like. Blue-red-white control here. And an incredible start from them. Search for Azcanta and Lightning Helix, 2 premium cards for a blue-red-white control deck. They scryed to the top, so do I want to Agonizing Remorse next turn in case the card that they scryed is too expensive, or do I want to just do it right now? I kind of want to do it right now because I don't think Yawgmoth's particularly powerful on this board state, whereas Terror of the Peaks would be very powerful the turn after this. So I don't want to have to take next turn off just playing a Terror of the Peaks. Or playing Agonizing Remorse and not my Terror of the Peaks. Let's see what they've got. Karn's Temporal Sundering and Ruthus. They could double Time Walk there, so let's just say no to that. And then I guess I could have got rid of the Legendary and then the 6-mana card would be dead in their hand until they hit another one. That might have been better. Alright, so they choose to draw the card on top. And it's Fiery Emancipation. Everything they do does triple damage now, but now their only card in hand is just a Rutha. So we've got a shot here, a big shot here, because we're going to put a big scary flyer down. And we're jamming in against an opponent with no cards in hand, basically, here. But, I mean, if they just draw, like, a Lightning Bolt, they just play Rutha, pick up Rutha to double the Lightning Bolt, and I think we're dead. A double Lightning Bolt would be 18 damage. It's not quite dead. Uh-oh. Fae of Wishes to grab anything they own from outside of the game and put it into their hand, so just pick up any burn spell. They have to reveal what they pick up here, but pick up any burn spell for that Fiery Emancipation, double it up with Rutha, and we could be super dead. Expansion Explosion? Yeah, that's just going to kill us next turn with Fiery Emancipation on the board. So what I do, blue, blue, red, red, X. They go blue, blue, red, red, 1, 2 right now. I guess that's 6 damage right now. All right, we got a shot. Massacre Worm's massive here. It's gonna make them lose life, and we kill the Fae of Wishes. and hit for 7. So if they don't kill us this turn, we win. And I don't think they have the mana to actually kill us with Explosion. Mill the Mana Rock. Leer, Disciple of the Drowned. That's not going to do it. They don't have the mana to cast anything else here. They only have 1 mana up. Wait, how do they put Lightning Helix on the stack? They don't have the mana for Lightning. I don't know. That's kind of a weird visual bug. I guess they like attempted to cast and then it didn't work, but it still put it on the stack. How? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, they're dead on board there because we hit for 5 in the sky. And then their best block on the ground is to block Massacre Worm, in which case they take 5 in the sky, 2 on the ground, plus Massacre Worm's ability, once the Liar Chump blocks, is that they're going to lose 2 more life. So we hit for 9. So 1-1 it is. That was terrifying when I saw that Fiery Emancipation. There were a lot of things going through my head there that they could have. Here we are, round 3 on a play with one of the most unkeepable hands I've ever seen. Quadruple Swamp, no creatures. No red source. Mulligan. Alright, 2-drop to start things off, and a Gaunty turn 4 is always good in this cube. Or in cube in general. I think I'm going to get rid of a land here. We just need to draw 1. We need to draw 2 to be really happy. But I don't think we get rid of a non-land here. Because we do flood out pretty hard in this deck. If we draw too many lands, it is quite painful for us. But we still need the 17 lands because we have multiple 6s and 5s and stuff. Alright. Plarg is out, gonna get things started here. Opponent is on blue, red, green, and black. Probably some 5-color good stuff, so we need to play as quickly as possible. We've got a solid stack of 3-mana creatures. It'd be great if we could draw one here. We do not draw into one of them. Do I want to discard a card for Plarg and try really hard to draw one? No, because I think all these cards are powerful. Like, we need this land for sure. If we discard something, it'll be Massacre Worm, just trying to draw 3-mana haste creature. But the odds are not super high. We have like 4 or 5 3-mana creatures. Soul Herder is the play. Alright, well, we're on Gaunty here. So if they play anything with a good enter the battlefield effect, we're just going to get absolutely pooped on. Because they're going to immediately double it up because we have no way to kill that right now. Yeah, that's bad. We attack with Plarg. There's no way. There is no universe in which they block. And then we drop Gaunty. Oh my god. It's their Gaunty, a Muldrotha the Gravetide, Obnixilis the Adversary, or Oracle Moldiah. Those are all incredible. What happens to the ones I don't? The rest go on the bottom, so at least these are all going on the bottom, so we just have to pick what's best for us. We're probably casting Terror of the Peak's Nest turn, but then if, I guess it's probably Gaunty, because like if we don't hit a land next turn, then we just play Gaunty instead. Gaunty number 2, because it's funny. I mean, they are legendary, so one is gonna die, but it's so funny I can't not. It's the best play, the best pick there's probably Oracle of Moldiah, because it does that same thing where it gives us something to do on turn 4, or next turn if we don't hit the 5th mana, while also not just like failing to the legendary rule. Make us discard a card here. Probably Massacre Worm, as much as I don't want to. Maybe Krenko. Krenko's the only thing I know I get to cast, though, after this turn, after this Gaunty. I guess it's Massacre Worm. Rough. Do we just play Krenko here instead of this Gaunty? While the board's still pretty clear. Probably do. I really should have taken Oracle Moldiah there. As funny as Gaunty for Gaunty is. I need to shut my brain off for that because I need to turn my brain on for that. Because every time that I see Gaunty into Gaunty, it's just immediate, yep, it's happening. Let's do it. Gaunty for Gaunty. Well, this is where we lose, because now they got an enter the battlefield effect. So Tristani Discordant comes out, creates 2 1/1s with lifelink, then flickers in the end step, creates 2 more 1/1s with lifelink, and we can never break through this, because we haven't drawn any removal for Soul Herder or Tristani Discordant. Callous Blood Mage is also not removal. Well, on the plus side, even if we chose Oracle Moldiah, we would have played it here and then just saw a Blood Mage on top and been like, well, shit. Because it lets us play lands on top, but if we just don't have lands on top, we still are just stuck here doing nothing. Yep, we don't have attacks anymore. Just Blood Mage to draw a card, I guess. Okay, so Oracle would have drawn us the land this turn. So Oracle would have opened us up to playing Terror of the Peaks this turn, which could lead into a possible kill on Tristani Discordant or Soul Herder the turn after. So Gonzi for Gonzi might have lost us this game, because if they don't have removal in hand and we went for Terror of the Peaks this turn, then playing Urabrask the turn after means then we blow up the Soul Herder here. And then we don't have to worry about them flickering anymore. And then the turn after that we blow up the Tristani, most likely. Soul Servitude, oh that's gonna be great, make them sacrifice a 1/1. Oh, they have to sack a non-token. Oh, well that dismantles their combo. We get rid of Soul Herder or we get rid of Tristani. Yeah, that's definitely the play. It has to be non-token. Soul Herder it is. Keep the Tristani Discordant around. I guess at this point they have 6. They have 6 2/2s with lifelink. I can discard a card if I want to get my own Soul Herder. I could do Soul Herder Gonzi here. That's pretty funny. Yeah, we have 2 Gontis, so we know we're definitely going to still have one around. Yeah, I'll get rid of Urabrask. Soul Herder is going to do like the same thing as Urabrask. And it's something that we can resolve for cheaper, potentially. But yeah, it's going to draw us an extra card every turn, just like Urabrask would. And neither of them are going to get through against this massive board state from our opponent. Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh, no! That's bad. They exile my whole hand as a +1.
I have foreseen your demise.
Alright, well, I'm out of here. Nicol Bolas probably kills us. Even if I picked up the Oracle Moldiah. But had I picked up that Oracle Moldiah, would have had Terror of the Peaks on the board, so I wouldn't have had it discarded. And then I would have had Terror Peaks on the board when I drew into the sacrifice spell, so I'd still probably cast the sacrifice spell, make them sack something, and then hit them for 5 in the sky there. Then when they played Nicol Bolas, they probably have to minus and get rid of the Terror of the Peaks. Which would mean I'd still have cards in hand. I would be in a way better position if I picked up Oracle Moldiah instead of the Gonti there. Don't think I'd be in the winning position, but I'd be in enough of a better position that it would be in the air. It's a question. Like, it's not a guaranteed loss. So a learning moment there. Gonti for Gonti's really funny, but if we want to win, we got to choose the best things. This is Chromatic Cube, though. I stand by the decision. It's 4,000 gold. It's pretty cheap. I'm going to play 14 of these drafts because these are going on for 2 weeks. I'm going to do the fun things when they come up, and I will lose games for it. I'm going to argue myself back into that position. You always Gonti for Gonti. Don't tell me otherwise. I would much rather block with a 2/3 flying vampire token than Atsushi.
I take no joy.
And I definitely want to block this card because I don't want my opponent to drop a bunch of virus beetles on me. I drafted enough Kamigawa Neon Dynasty in the past. Chromatic Lantern is the play. And no attacks. Go Count Dracula, get us that value. Sure, I will draw that. Lose 3 life.
Nothing on Innistrad is free.
So we can go Captain Lannery Storm, get a treasure token, and play Midnight Reaper. And Lannery for Swarm Saboteur is not a terrible trade in my opinion. Because of that Death Touch where it's just going to trade into our biggest attacker later in the game anyway. Our biggest ground attacker, that is. We do have a lot of flyers this game. That should be pretty sweet. So opponents got the Chromatic Lantern off, so they've got the full 5 color, just anything they want at their disposal. All of their lands, tap for a mana of any color. The world is their oyster. Davriel! So there's the -2 that does a massive question mark. They've picked the massive question mark. They're going Riddler all over us. Let's see what happens here. Accept one of Davriel's offers. Then accept one of Davriel's conditions. It's definitely a line of text that explains what it does. Okay, so the offers, they get to draw 3 cards. The condition is the emblem. Spells they cast cost a black mana more to cast. That is a painful emblem. I am happy they got stuck with that thing. Wow. So I don't have any haste creatures here. Not a fan of that. Let's go Terror of the Peaks. When another creature enters the battlefield, I deal damage equal to that power to anything. Then I get to make a 2-power creature. Use that 2-power creature to finish off Davriel and send the rest of the damage at their face. Seems pretty great. If they don't have a Wrath effect here, I think I'm pretty firmly in the lead. And even if they do, the fact that everything they cast for the rest of the game costs an additional black mana. Yeah, Davriel was a big jerk. Super rude. Davriel comes in with the mountain of fine print that's just like, yeah, you're not gonna like this. 2-2 it is as we head into round 5. A little high on mana here, but I like the hand otherwise. And I'm gonna keep it. Oh, more land. Now I'm getting concerned. But hey, that's all the mana that we need to cast Cavalier of Night. So we were going to want to draw that 1 extra land at some point. Ooh, now we have a Callous Blood Mage. Probably just dropping Krenko turn 3 and hoping for no cheap interaction from our opponents. Maze Mind Tome's another phenomenal card like the Treasure Map. I think this one's better than Treasure Map because it has an alternate use where you don't have to spend mana on it. But it's very similar to the Treasure Map where it's going to sit there giving you value for a few turns, and then it'll gain you some life even, which is very relevant against the more aggressive decks. There are not a lot of counterspells in this cube. At like 3 mana or less, there is Whirlwind Denial that I can think of, but the other counterspells in this cube are mainly like big ones like Salumgar's Command and Sublime Epiphany. So I don't feel too worried dropping Krenko against a bunch of open mana there, because worst case scenario is they're just going to removal spell during their turn, most likely, and that is what happens. Okay, turn 4. Ooh, Toralf's Disciple. Just start shoving a bunch of lightning bolts in my deck. Would I rather do that than Midnight Reaper or Callous Blood Mage? If I Callous Blood Mage, I can make a Pest, which sets up for Cavalier of Night to kill a creature next turn, but I don't even know if they're going to play a creature, so I'm just going to Toralf's Disciple and Urabrask here. Let's just jam a bunch of lightning bolts into the deck. Alright, Maze Mind Tome still popping off here, drawing them extra cards, giving them that card advantage lead. Now we've got a play set of lightning bolts in our deck. We actually have 5 of them in our deck, which is legal and limited, not legal and constructed, but in alchemy, anything's legal. No, they played a creature. If they played a creature, I was going to really want to go have gone Blood Mage to Cavalier of Night and blow up the creature. This is fine, though. Trading Toralf's Disciple into that Gonti isn't that bad. Hopefully they didn't get anything too spicy out of our deck. They probably didn't get a lightning bolt. I think they got a lightning bolt, they would just have bolted our thing. So now Cavalier of Night doesn't look very good here because I don't really want to sack Disciple to kill one of those things when Disciple's already just going to trade. So I think to make the most of my mana, I want to go 3-drop and a 2-drop because I also don't want to attack Urabrask into Gonti. So I want to go Midnight Reaper pre-combat so that if Toralf's Disciple trades, I get to draw a card off of it. And then I can Agonizing Remorse and see what's going on in their hand after combat. Don't think it matters too much if we Agonizing Remorse pre-combat or post-combat, but this way they might have some kind of plan that involves how they block here. You know, like maybe they have some reanimation spell in their hand that they're really excited to use on Gonti, and now I Agonize Remorse after they've already chosen how they want to block. I don't know. Maybe. That's just theory crafting there. I don't know if it's better to Remorse pre or post there. So they don't have... Well, they do have Elspeth Conquers Death to bring back the Gonti eventually. And that would exile us. That would exile our Midnight Reaper, which would be bad. 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 5 mana here. 5 mana, no more mana in hand. So Scholar of the Lost Trove is a couple turns away from happening, hopefully. But that is their most impactful play, because it's going to be a 5/5 flyer and a removal spell, because they can cast Vanishing Verse off of it. Or it's going to be that and, well, Mazemind Tome gets exiled, so it'll be that and Solemn Simulacrum or something. I think we just cross that bridge when we come to it, and for now we just get rid of their best current play, which is Elspeth Conquers Death. Obscure Interceptor's a pretty annoying one, but we can play around that if they hold all their mana up here. They probably just go Solemn or whatever they got off of Gonti this turn. I would assume Solemn, because that gets them towards the Scholar of the Lost Truth. Yep, Solemn Simulacrum it is. Pull out the land. Now they're only 1 mana away from the Scholar. And we've drawn into one of our Lightning Bolts, which now I can play a 5 mana creature and hold up a Lightning Bolt, which is great. Urabrask. And they only have 3 power on the board, which means Urabrask gets to attack freely. I don't love Midnight Reaper trading for Solemn Simulacrum, but I also don't like just Lightning Bolting the Solemn. But I actually probably should. Because we know their creatures later aren't going to get bolted super hard. I mean, Interceptor would get bolted, but they're not going to cast that if they hit a land. They're going to cast Scholar, and Bolt's not going to do anything there. We're just going to Cavalier away the Scholar. So let's actually Bolt Solemn so that we can get this good attack in. Try to keep the pressure on here. No, they did get a Bolt? Or they're just chumping. Okay, they didn't get a Bolt off of Gonti. I was so scared there when they did that block. They hit a land for the turn as their draw. So that's the play. Scholar of the Lost Trove is going to be big. It's going to exile Urabrask because they get to recast Vanishing Verse. No, Noxious Gearhulk. Basically the exact same thing as Scholar of the Lost Trove, but now they still have Scholar of the Lost Trove. And if I blow up Noxious Gearhulk... Wow, yeah, this is actually way better than playing Scholar. That's so bad for us, because if we blow up this Gearhulk, it goes in their graveyard, and Scholar of the Lost Trove can return artifacts, which is horrific for us. So we need to draw, like, exile removal or something here. We can't just, like, Cavalier of Night get rid of Gearhulk. Oh my god, yes we can. Because Callous Bloodmage can exile their grave, but we don't have the mana to do it all right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7. Oh my god, I should have probably just held Lightning Bolt and waited to hit 1 more land, and then maybe exile their grave after we kill Gearhulk. Maybe the play was to attack in with Midnight Reaper and trade in Midnight Reaper and Lightning Bolt into the Gearhulk, and then exile the grave. I don't know, I forgot Blood Mage can exile graveyards, because I'm so used to just doing the Pest or the draw card. That was a pretty big punt, though. We should have looked for a line that can make good use out of the Blood Mage there. What on earth is this thing? Try Turn an instant or sorcery from grave to hand. Shuffle it into its library when it dies. Yep. So once I played Blood Mage and it was on the stack, I could have chosen to exile the grave, but with Noxious Gearhulk on board, the only thing we know that they're using graveyard recursion for in their hand is Scholar of the Lost Trove, and I don't think I wanted to exile their grave at that point, because then if they tapped out for Scholar of Lost Trove and did the Vanishing Verse, then I know I get to start killing the Gearhulk. So we got by it because we didn't exile their grave, but it's because they had Cyba Siphoner, it's not because they went for Scholar. If they went for Scholar, I would have been fine with it. That's why I stuck to the card draw once I realized, but had already put the Blood Mage on the stack. Yeah, I mean, we're just not accomplishing anything here. We just don't kill the Gearhulk. Every card in our opponent's deck is just like a big creature and a removal spell. Well, not a big creature, but a creature and a removal spell. Which worked just so poorly for us. Guess we just start trying to draw cards off of Plarg and see if that gets us anywhere. Because killing a Gearhulk certainly does not. There's so much 2-for-1 value in this cube. I think my biggest takeaway, yeah, oh my god. They just have tons of creatures that are just like enter the battlefield and removal spell. My biggest takeaway from this cube draft here, draft number 2, trying to go for like the Rakdos aggro kind of thing, is I just don't think there's enough cheap like 1 and 2 mana really powerful aggressive cards to do it. We did win a couple games, but it's like the games that we're losing, we are losing incredibly handedly because there's just so many good card advantage like value spells. Once you get to the mid-range mana cost at like 4 or 5 mana, so many 2-for-1s. It's like this is a removal spell and a creature, or this draws a removal spell and it's a creature, that you just get absolutely overwhelmed by any mid-range deck or control deck. I don't think aggro is super viable in this cube. Just not enough great cheap aggro cards would be my big takeaway here, and probably this might be the only time I draft aggro. I don't know. I'm gonna draft pretty much daily as long as these cubes are around, which is another 12 days now, so we'll see. Maybe I will do aggro again. I probably will, honestly. Once I've drafted a few mid-range piles, I'll get bored of it and just pick one, pack one, Torburn and see what happens. But I wouldn't generally recommend it. That's the big learning point of this this draft here. So now even if I Cavalier of Night, they put it into our hand with an Interceptor, we're incredibly dead. We are incredibly dead by the mountain of 2-for-1 value creatures from our opponents. See, I think in this cube, you really, really, really want to just stick to your just mid-rangers, the value piles, everything that's like drawing a card when it enters the battlefield, doing a removal spell when it enters the battlefield, trying to go for something more aggressive like this, where you have a lot of creatures that are like, well, this just comes in and deals damage. This just comes in and deals damage. It's not often going to get there. Maybe, like, we can look at the cube list here. Maybe I really just didn't see a lot of the 1-2 mana creatures, but I think that it's a pretty low count compared to most cubes. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the 1 and 2 mana creatures, there's like Tenacious Underdog and Swarm Saboteur that are pretty aggressive, but a lot of the other ones are like just utility ones, like Brain Maggot's just a 1/1, Jadar's just a 1/1, but it does give you those Decayed Zombies to try to hit your opponent with. Kitesail Freebird is just 1 power. Null Priest is more of a reanimation kind of card, but you could play that in aggro deck as a 2 mana 2/1 lifelink. But then when you look at 1 mana, you've got like Crypt Breaker for a zombies deck. It's kind of slow for aggro as well, but you do turn any lands you're drawing late game into just 2/2s, which is good. Then like Blood Artist. If we look at the red creatures, that's probably going to be a lot more indicative of what's going on in this cube. Yeah, they put 0 1 mana red creatures in this cube, which is kind of a big deal. There are several powerful 1 mana red creatures that have seen play in in multiple just like red-based aggro decks. There's like Fanatical Firebrand, the 1-mana 1/1 that sacks to deal damage to any target and also has haste. There's the 1-mana 1/1 with Delirium, that if you have 4 more card types in your grave, it turns into a 3/3 flyer, and every time you cast a spell, you get to surveil one. That one is bonkers. There's just a lot of stuff like that they could have put in here if they really wanted aggro to be viable. And then even when you look at the 2-drops, there are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 2-mana red creatures in this cube. And Smoldering Egg is not for aggro, it's very slow. Plarg is just a 2/2, so it's not really good for aggro. Magmatic Channeler just sits there and draws cards, not particularly aggro. Yes, you do have Robber of the Rich and Rahilda, which are both phenomenal for aggressive strategies, but I think you just don't have enough powerful, aggressive, like 1/2-mana creatures to really support that kind of deck, and that is what we learned the hard way in this draft with this 2 and 3 run. Things do start ramping up at 3 mana. You've got Lannery Storm, you've got whatever, but yeah, there's no like Runaway Steamkin, there's no Earthshaker Kenra, there's none of the like, I mean, there are some, Robber of the Rich and Rahilda are 2 of the like really good 2-drop red cards, but you're missing a lot of them. You're missing enough that aggro, probably not the place to be here, which, it's kind of weird I had to learn this way, because it feels like most cubes are really, really like built in a way where if you see a card, you know it's going to work, you know there's a deck for it. But I feel like there's some cards in this cube that are like actual traps. Like I feel like Torben, seeing the rest of this cube, I think Torben's just a trap. Like it's just not a deck you can build. Like you're not going to get much done trying to be the mono red aggro deck in this cube, because your curve is just going to start too slow to where by the time you can start dropping out your powerful aggressive creatures, your opponent can just start dropping like 2-for-1 cards like Gaunty and Angel of Sanctions and all of this kind of nonsense. And there's a solid amount of like solid removal. A little bit of Wraths like Burn Down the House. All right, well, I'm going to stop not really lamenting, but I'm gonna stop, I don't know, discussing here. I'm gonna actually end the video for you all so you can all get on with your lives, but still a pretty fun draft. I think it was a fun deck, even if it didn't pan out perfectly for us. 2 and 3 is not terrible. It's not an 0-3 or anything, but I'm actually kind of happy with that record for this deck, because it does feel like the aggro decks are kind of a trap. There's something you really probably shouldn't try to build, at least in black and red. Maybe there's a ton of white aggressive stuff that I didn't look at, but I highly doubt it. Seems like definitely a cube where everybody wants to be mid-range, ramp, or control, something with a lot more leader game plays, and more impactful individual cards than cards that are just kind of in there to do damage, like Lannery and Toralf's Disciple and all that kind of stuff. Tenacious Underdog, that kind of stuff. So that is going to end today's video. I hope you all enjoyed watching this draft as much as I enjoyed playing it, or more. Well, that was very loud, Timret. Thank you for the sign off. As always, thank you all very much for watching. If you'd like to see some more of these videos, you can like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to put more in your recommended feeds. Yeah, I'll see you all again very soon for some more Magic Arena.